This Christmas felt different from any other, and Emma Johnson couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that clung to her like the cold winter air outside her window. The snow fell in soft, steady flakes, blanketing the quiet suburban street where her family lived, painting everything white and still, as if the world was holding its breath. She stood by the frosted glass, watching the children play in the living room, their laughter echoing like music she should have been enjoying but couldn't because her mind kept returning to David, her husband, and the subtle distance that had grown between them over the past few months. David, cheerful and focused on decorating the Christmas tree, seemed present, but she noticed the little signs of distraction. The way his eyes lingered on his phone for too long, the quiet sighs he thought she wouldn't notice, the way he sometimes drifted into thought in the middle of conversation, leaving her feeling unseen and unneeded. She wondered if she was imagining it, if her own insecurities were twisting ordinary moments into something more threatening. But her heart whispered truths she wasn't ready to face. Just when she was about to step forward and join the children, the doorbell rang, breaking the rhythm of the afternoon, and Emma's stomach knotted with anticipation and confusion. When she opened the door, she found Claire standing there, a woman from David's past who had once been very close to him, whose presence instantly brought a storm of emotions she hadn't expected: jealousy, curiosity, and a sharp sense of foreboding. Claire smiled warmly, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and Emma's pulse quickened as she realized this visit could change everything. David came to the door, his own surprise apparent, and yet a flicker of something else passed across his face, something Emma couldn't quite read, something that made her uneasy in the depth of her chest. Claire stepped inside, brushing off the snow, her voice light but deliberate, as if she knew exactly how to occupy the space between Emma and David without seeming threatening. The children, unaware of the tension, ran off to play, leaving Emma in the entryway, awkward and unsure, caught in a storm of emotions she wasn't ready to face yet. She watched them talk, their words polite, yet under the surface she sensed memories, shared history, unspoken regrets, and perhaps secrets that had nothing to do with her, but which pierced her heart all the same. Her mind raced with questions. Was this visit innocent? Was it simply a reunion? Or did it hint at something she hadn't noticed in David's subtle behaviors over the past months? The laughter of her children, the twinkle of lights on the tree, the soft hum of holiday music all seemed distant now, muffled by the tension in the air, and she realized that this Christmas, the season she had always associated with warmth, joy, and family, might become the moment that forced her to confront truths she had been avoiding. Emma felt a strange mix of fear and anticipation, her chest tight, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her coat, unsure whether to step forward and intervene or stay hidden and listen. She remembered the quiet moments she and David had shared in recent weeks, the lost conversations, the missed touches, the fading closeness, and it all made her heart ache with longing for the intimacy she feared had slipped away. Yet, beneath the worry, there was a spark of hope. If she could understand what was happening, if she could talk to David honestly, perhaps they could find a way back to each other, even after the unspoken tensions and distant months. And just as she was about to gather her courage and enter the living room, Claire's voice rose slightly, friendly but probing, asking David about old times, and Emma's breath caught, because in that moment, she knew nothing would ever feel quite normal again this Christmas, that the quiet, cozy home she had known for years now held the weight of uncertainty, of secrets, and of feelings too complicated to easily untangle, and she realized that the next few hours could define not just this holiday, but the future of their marriage, leaving her with a question that lingered in her mind like a shadow. Could love survive when trust was tested? Or would this Christmas mark the moment everything changed? The morning after Claire's unexpected visit, the house felt different, heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, and Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something she had ignored for too long was now impossible to avoid. She moved through the kitchen, pouring coffee with hands that trembled slightly, trying to focus on the ordinary, the smell of brewing coffee, the hum of the toaster, the children's laughter as they played nearby. But her mind kept drifting back to the words she had overheard the night before, soft exchanges between David and Claire that hinted at histories, regrets, and closeness she hadn't realized still existed. She wondered how she had missed the subtle signs, the little glances David gave when he thought she wasn't looking, the way his voice carried a warmth for her she hadn't recognized until now, and the fleeting moments of hesitation when she asked him questions about his day. Emma's heart ached with a mix of sorrow, anger, and longing. She realized that marriage was never simple, that love wasn't just about comfort and shared holidays, but also about navigating fears, disappointments, and the shadows of past connections that refused to stay buried. As she sipped her coffee, David entered the kitchen, his face calm but his eyes betraying a nervousness she had rarely seen. And for a moment Emma froze, unsure whether to speak or retreat, to demand honesty or to give space. Claire had left shortly after breakfast, her visit polite but lingering in every corner of the house, leaving questions in her wake that Emma couldn't ignore. She remembered how David had hesitated at the door, shaking hands subtly, and how he had looked at her with an expression that was apologetic yet distant, as though he carried an invisible weight he hadn't shared. Emma realized that love could be both comforting and painful, that trust was fragile, and that this Christmas, the season she had always associated with warmth and family togetherness, had become a mirror reflecting truths she had avoided. She watched David move through the house, carrying plates for the children, and noticed the care in his movements, the familiar gestures of a father who loved his family, but beneath it she sensed a man grappling with choices, emotions, and memories that didn't involve her entirely, and her chest tightened with a combination of fear and hope. The children ran through the living room, scattering ornaments and giggling, and Emma envied their simple joy, wishing she could reclaim that innocence in her own heart. But she knew that the adult world, with its secrets and regrets, demanded confrontation and understanding rather than avoidance. Later, when the house fell silent and the snow continued to fall outside, Emma found herself on the staircase, listening to the faint hum of David tidying up after the children, and a sudden surge of emotion swept over her. Love, fear, longing, and a deep yearning for clarity. She realized she could no longer ignore the tension that had quietly built between them, that the quiet glances, the brief touches, and the shared smiles were not enough to shield them from unspoken truths, and that this Christmas could either fracture the fragile threads of their family or serve as the moment they chose to rebuild. Emma's mind replayed every subtle sign of distance and distraction, every moment of silent longing, every conversation she hadn't pursued because she feared what she might uncover. And now, with Claire's visit fresh in her memory, she understood that avoidance was no longer possible. She had to confront the reality of David's heart, their marriage, and the paths that had led them to this fragile yet pivotal moment. When David finally joined her on the staircase, coffee in hand, he hesitated, then offered a small smile as if sensing the storm of emotions she carried, and Emma, feeling a mixture of anger, vulnerability, and lingering affection, decided that silence was no longer an option. She wanted to understand, to speak, to face the truth, even if it hurt, because she had learned that love without honesty was empty, and that happiness built on half-truths was fragile. As she approached him, the children's laughter fading into quiet as they drifted to sleep, she felt the weight of anticipation and fear, knowing that the conversation she was about to have could define not just this Christmas, but the future of their family, their love, and the bond that had held them together through years of shared dreams and hardships. The snow outside sparkled under the streetlights, cold and pure, contrasting with the storm inside her heart, and she realized that sometimes the harshest winter brought clarity, that confronting pain could be the first step toward healing, and that hope, fragile yet persistent, could shine brightest when all else seemed uncertain. Emma looked into David's eyes, searching for the man she loved, the father of her children, the partner who had stood by her through countless trials, and she saw a flicker of remorse, care, and longing that mirrored her own, and in that moment, the fragile tension of the past days crystallized into a silent understanding that love was messy, that trust could be tested, and that this Christmas was no longer just about gifts, decorations, or carols. It was about facing truths, making choices, and daring to believe that together they could navigate the shadows and find warmth in each other's hearts once again. And yet, as they stood in the dim light of their home, the snow still falling outside, a quiet question lingered between them, unspoken but felt. Could forgiveness and love truly mend the subtle fractures of the past, or would the silent doubts continue to shape the moments ahead, leaving this Christmas as a turning point whose outcome was still unknown and whose lessons would echo through their hearts long after the tree lights had dimmed?